Tracy Martin.
Chair, I actually rise to speak against the Local Government Act 2002 Amendment Bill. I am one of only 2 members of this House that have worked inside an amalgamated city. I am the only member of this House that still works inside an amalgamated city. And I find it fascinating, the statements from that side of the House with regard to, and I'm going to address Nikki Wagner's statements actually, around the ability of 10% to make a decision, 10% of ratepayers to make a decision whether they want to become an amalgamated councils or not. And I'm asking on behalf of the people of Rodney, does it go both ways? Does it go both ways? The people of Rodney never had an opportunity to express their opinion before being absorbed into the amalgamated city of Auckland. The people of Rodney asked their elected central government representative at the time, Dr. Lockwood Smith, at a meeting at Ascension, just take a show of hands, sir. Take a show of hands as to whether we want our rural communities want to be dragged inside a massive urban environment. And he said no. This is an extension of that sort of consultation from this government. This is an extension, and the Wairarapa should be aware. The Wairarapa should watch out. They need to come and talk to me and talk to the people of Rodney. 46% of the land mass of Auckland is in the Rodney Local Board area, only 5% of the population. Our service levels are dropping, our rates are rising, our mooring fees have doubled, our horses on the beaches are under threat because they're now urban beaches. Our people cannot get their voice heard in the ivory towers of Auckland because of an amalgamation. So I find it very interesting that Ms Wagner suggests that this bill, with further amalgamation suggested, actually will bring more democracy. That is not the experience of my community. That is not the experience of local boards in Auckland City. There is a major difference between the role of local board and role of councillors, and the local boards are the advocates for their communities. Mr Smith continues to bang on about the rising levels of debt and suggests that this is because councils are frivolous, sir. And yet he makes no statement about the legislation passed by central government, which puts an onus onto local government to provide certain infrastructure. And I take for Rodney, I pick up the point around water quality. When the Rodney District Council was still in existence, the central government passed legislation that said that the infrastructure had to be upgraded so that all water quality was the same across the country. That was a massive amount of infrastructure required by that local government. That is how you get these levels of debt, Mr Smith. And if you don't know that, then I suggest you haven't had a good enough breakdown, sir. You haven't had a good enough breakdown, sir, from the officers that you've requested it. Because you continue to shout across the House, why is the debt fourfold? That is why, sir. In the same way that the central government decided that rates must be based upon capital value. Do you know what that did? Do you know what that did to the farmers and the people of Rodney when that decision was made at central government, but now the central government wants to blame local government for the rise in rates that came out of that decision? So I think that's misleading. It's misleading, sir, to say that that local government has been frivolous with money and that this has created this massive amount of debt and that it's come from the 4 well-beings. Let's remember what some of those 4 well-beings provide, shall we? Christmas parades. Christmas parades are happening all around my area at the moment. They are all funded by discretionary grants. All funded by discretionary grants for social cohesion. Privet removal. For our young unemployed people working with organisations like Springboard, we're able to, through economic and environmental grants, we're able to form working parties to give work experience to those young people to remove a noxious weed from our environment. It's called a win-win situation, sir, and it wouldn't happen under the restrictions that are applied inside this bill. Libraries. Libraries currently provide literacy and ESOL support inside our environments. Libraries they currently provide literacy and ESOL support, and they are supported through, again, discretionary grants for volunteers to provide community programs. Now, Mr Smith has always, actually in the first reading of this bill, Mr Chair,
Martin.
Kia ora. Mr Smith, in the first reading of this bill, pointed out, he made a big song and dance actually about a CCO that Auckland City has called Comet. And he made a big song and dance about why is a local government body involved in education? I would suggest that the government needs to be careful what they wish for. Comet, I believe, is 3 or 4 human beings who collectively hold all the knowledge about the different educational providers and initiatives inside the whole of the Auckland City, and the Ministry of Education and the Minister of Education use that single touch point to save them money, to save them from having to put people on the ground, to go and find out where those organisations are, to come up with a comprehensive and a comprehensive overview of what Auckland needs for its future. The hand of central government is so far down into Auckland, it's not funny. This is not about saving ratepayers' money, and the ratepayers of Rodney and the ratepayers of Auckland can tell you that. This is about control. This is about taking control from the people of Rodney, from the people of Auckland, and giving it over to themselves. This is not, and I thought that was particularly interesting, that one of the speakers said that it was about local government trying to keep control for themselves. We are on the ground every day with our ratepayers. You sit here in your ivory tower and you tell us that we don't know. I beg your pardon. So members of this House sit here in an ivory tower and do not go down to see the ratepayers on the street level. And just because they have a few constituents who are property developers who find it too hard to get through the RMA or have to make a reserve contribution for their communities, this is not the way to address those issues, sir.
Mr Chair.
Darian Fenton.
Very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very